Checking for understanding and monitoring progress within the lesson is one of the most important elements of a successful lesson. Otherwise, what can happen, you can get through an entire lesson and actually your students either have not understood the content and haven't achieved a learning objective, or it's been so easy that you didn't have to spend as long as you did scaffolding it for them. So regular checks for understanding, as opposed just to at the end of the lesson or just before they're doing an independent practice, is really important. So that comes after activating prior knowledge, it comes after concept development, and at regular intervals in the guided practice. Think about what could be the appositive in this sentence. Now this time B's are going to tell A's what they think the appositive could be in this new sentence. You only need 10 seconds for this. B's tell A's, and go. I give lots of live feedback in my lessons, and this serves two purposes. Firstly, it picks up any misconceptions that you are seeing across the room. So if students aren't, for example, putting the commas in the right spot, if you've seen a couple of students who are, or they've remembered their commas, by praising those students, it's a reminder for the other students, oh, I need to put commas in those spots as well, or I need to make sure I've checked for capitalisation of proper nouns, whatever it may be. One of Australia's most famous landmark, brilliant, Vincent. Because what does it do? What does that bit of information do to the subject? What's it doing?
Telling them what the Sydney Harbour Bridge is.
It is. It's telling us what the Sydney Harbour Bridge is. So it's renaming the subject. Isn't it brilliant? So that could form part of our positive. Excellent.
By calling on a non-volunteer, it means everyone's accountable, everyone's engaged, but they know that they can share that answer with me, and my feedback is going to help them grow and extend them, never to say they're wrong, but just to keep them engaged with that learning. So by varying those different questioning types and methods of questioning, I can extend, I can support, and I can check for their understanding before we move on. Could I ask that partner A please shares their response first? Off we go, partner A.
A cause for spatial inequality is population growth, where developing countries have a sudden increase in population and they are not able to meet that.
And partner B in 3, 2, 1. And we're ready to share in 3, 2, 1. Could you share your response with us, please, Claire? I'm able to walk around the room and provide feedback. So that allows me to gauge if I've got that 80% mastery. If 80% of my kids are where they should be, then we can move on. If they're not where they should be at that point, then we reteach and we have another go. Fantastic. So Claire's had a look at outlining 2 causes, and she's done a great job. She has provided some description of what that concept is, and that would be a 3 out of 3. She's explained how population growth impacts spatial inequality and how legacy of history impacts spatial inequality. So when I'm asking a question, I deliberately put the student's name last. So I might say, can you please define spatial inequality for me, Jamie? If I worded that as, Jamie, can you define spatial inequality? Every other kid not named Jamie has stopped paying attention because they're not going to be asked. So by putting it last, you're keeping that accountability nice and high. Anyone could be asked, we don't know who it's going to be, so we're focused, we've got our answer ready because we've pair shared it, or we've thought about it, or we've written it down in our guided notes, so we're ready to go, and we're waiting to find out who that person who's going to be asked is. Could I ask in a nice loud voice, could you read your answer for us please, Hudson?
So when I use those mini whiteboards, I can check straight away whether students have the correct answer, and if they don't, I can correct that misconception straight away. So what I do is I ask the students to put down their boards, watch me correct the misconception, then they have a chance to fix their error, and then they chin it again. So I can make sure that everyone has the correct answer, and then I make sure they get to do a similar question again, so they can put that learning back into context. They can try that exact question again, making sure they have fixed that error. I think someplace where we were getting confused here, 1 plus 0 plus 8. It is not 10 plus 8. What is it? It is 1 plus 0 plus 8, not 10 plus 8. Okay, so if you have not done that, can you fix your answers for me now? Just finishing off your question, fix your answer. I know if I've pitched my lesson at the correct level, whether it's too easy or too hard. By looking at those mini whiteboards every lesson, I can see exactly what answers they have and whether they've got their answer clearly. I can also check their independent practice books at the end of a lesson as well, see whether they have all their answers correct. If they need further teaching, I can do a new lesson the next day, reteaching the same concept. Otherwise, if they're doing the work too easily, so every single answer is correct, I might have pitched it too low. I can potentially speed up the pace a little bit and drop that scaffolding off a little bit earlier. 3,065 plus 2,788. Let's write it out first. 3,065 plus 2,000.
So during check-in for understanding, if a student provides me with an incorrect answer or they say they don't have an answer, we believe in a no opt-out policy, so all students are learning all the time. So if students show me they are confused with the answer, I'll say I'll come back to you and I'll go and ask some other students. And that allows them to hear correct answers as well and make sure they know I'm coming back, so they have to be engaged in listening in the learning. And when I come back to them, if they're still giving me an incorrect answer, then I might get the students to pair share again, or I'll have my anchor chart there for them to say, actually, let's look at the anchor chart, this is the answer, read it with me, and then re-ask the question so they can be successful. Everyone, read with me the meaning, adjective, full of or having. Read with me, fill in the blanks. The suffix full means full of. Ooh, what does the suffix full mean, please, Ryder? I'm going to come back to you, Ryder, okay? Ivan, what does the suffix full mean?
It means full of or having.
Good. Ryder, what does the suffix full mean?
Full of or having.
Excellent, okay.
So this little movement is all around students actually showing me that they are ready to move on, because we know that students all process things at different times, making sure that all students have that thinking time and the ability to actually form an answer for them to be able to turn, communicate and consolidate the information. What is the Queen actually asking Edmund here? What is the Queen actually asking? When you have figured out, show me that you know. Right, think, pair, share, go. There's also a lot of engagement norms that happen that are always drawing students' attention back to the task at hand, and if the students aren't actually paying attention, they're not doing the engagement norm, so therefore we're always checking that students are engaged and understand. Before I continue reading, what do we notice about this? What do we notice about this? All right. Quick, think, pair, share, go. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay. Isaiah, what do you notice about here, buddy? Parentheses. And inside the parentheses, because these are the parentheses here, what is this? Abbreviation. Great job. It has taken the first letter of each word to abbreviate it.
So when I'm checking for understanding, if my students are showing signs of difficulties or misunderstandings, that's where my effective feedback is really important. So asking them prompting questions or cues. So think about the function of FSH. Think about if you had excess FSH, if you put more into the female's body, what effect would that have? And why would you want that? If a woman is struggling with infertility, she wants to have a baby, why would the doctor recommend additional follicle stimulating hormone? If there is any sort of misunderstandings or misconceptions, we go back and reteach it, because often our content is sequenced logically from simple to most difficult, and they're not going to be able to demonstrate success with those more difficult concepts or skills if they don't have a good foundation understanding of those. Fantastic. I love how you stepped that out. So you started with the function of FSH, then you went through what the effect of excess FSH be and why that would be suitable with infertility. So let's look at our marking key. Can you please mark your work?